Today on the WhereTraveler podcast, our hostess, Teresa Rodriguez, sits down with a few friends who happen to be in the cast of Hamilton in San Francisco. That production's run has been extended through May 31st of next year, and while a performance that spectacular for a show this hot does sell out, you can get tickets for a really good seat at very reasonable prices. They start at $75 for seats with great visibility, some even in sections on the main floor. So if you have not seen the show, it is truly an experience of a lifetime. You'll be moved, you'll learn history, and you'll get attached to characters from our country's founding who you may never have even known. You'll also be inspired to go out and make your own difference, and all for the price of a ticket that is, again, very reasonable. Just go to hamiltonmusical.com, choose San Francisco, or click on the link in the show notes to get right there. Now, about our guests today. Rick Negron plays King George III. His stage career spans 25 years and 8 Broadway productions, numerous tours, a variety of work in film, television, commercials, and voiceovers. His depth of experience includes every aspect of the entertainment business. He's worked as an actor, singer, dancer, producer, director, stage manager, and he's an excellent cook, so he could cater the production if it came right down to it. Simon Longnight plays Thomas Jefferson and the Marquis de Lafayette, and he's one of the youngest cast members in the show. But don't let his age deceive you. His experience and the insight he brings to these characters is rich and inspiring. He's been studying dance and musical theater since the age of 12, when he enrolled in the Oregon Ballet Academy. He eventually studied theater at the University of Michigan. He studied art history in Paris. He's the oldest of 7 kids, 5 of whom were adopted through foster care, and he credits his family for teaching him the generosity and sense of collaboration that makes him shine in this particular production every single night. Brion Marquis Watson is the youngest member of the cast. He is originally from Greensboro, North Carolina, where he was a gifted athlete who turned his attention to dance, where he could put his physicality and expressiveness to work together. He studied musical theater at the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music before transferring to the prestigious Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater in New York and graduating from there with honors not very long ago. His career is off to a great start, though. He's already worked in TV, and in his performance in Hamilton, he's a standout every show. Now, if you like this kind of content and you want to support the WhereTraveler podcast, please go to iTunes or Spotify or iHeartRadio or whichever app you open to hear us and rate the show. And if you're feeling expressive, please write us a review and let other listeners know how you feel. Also, share the show with your friends and your fellow travelers. It helps us reach new listeners, and we really appreciate it. And now, along with our host, Teresa Rodriguez, here are our guests today from the San Francisco cast of Hamilton, captured in the Blue Room of the Orpheum Theater. Here are Rick Negron, Simon Longnight, and Brion Marquis Watson.
You're listening to the WhereTraveler podcast, the audio companion for WhereTraveler magazine in print and online. For more information, go to wheretraveler.com. And now, Teresa Rodriguez, Editor-in-Chief for WhereTraveler San Francisco.
Hi, this is Teresa Rodriguez with the WhereTraveler podcast. And today is a pretty awesome day because I'm with a few of the cast members from Hamilton. Hamilton is playing in San Francisco, and we have some really super awesome big news. They have been playing here for the last year, and they were supposed to end at the end of this year, but we just found out, and you're the first to know, they're extending until May 31st, 2020. Congratulations, gentlemen. Yay.
Thank you.
So I'm here with Brion, who you can watch his awesome moves in the Jimmy Fallon video that I'm going to make sure that we include. Rick, we're here with Rick, who plays King George III and is amazing. And then, of course, my daughter's favorite, Simon Longnight, who actually has the ability to play 2 characters, Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson. Thank you guys all so much for taking time out of your super busy schedule to be with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Oh my God. I'm like, I've got goosebumps. I've seen the show a few times, and every time I see it, I'm like, wow, I don't know how you guys do this. So I just want to ask each of you, where you come from, where's home, how you ended up here. So, Simon, I want to talk with you because I know you're from Oregon originally.
Yes.
So can you just tell us about your journey to end up on the stage at Hamilton?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Eugene, Oregon. I started in ballet. I went to Oregon Ballet Academy for quite a while. I wanted to actually join Ailey. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So I wanted to join Ailey, and Brion went to Ailey.
I was an Ailey baby too.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
And can you tell our listeners what Ailey is? Because
you want to take it?
Yes, Ailey stands for Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. It's one of the largest modern companies in the world. Predominantly African American.
They've been around for many, many years.
Many years.
And where are they located?
In New York City. That's where I went to school.
That's so awesome.
So that was my first goal, and then I discovered Shakespeare. And then combining ballet and Shakespeare, I fell into musical theater. And then I went to the University of Michigan, and I studied musical theater there, and then I graduated. And now I'm in Hamilton. It's
this
crazy.
Is like it's so crazy because it's like sitting with three people who made their dreams come true. And I think I get goosebumps thinking about it, that, our listeners are listening to this and going, wow, these guys did it. You guys made it. And that is just so fantastic.
It's a crazy sensation.
Yeah, with very different journeys.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because this was my dream role. Like, this was my dream show.
Really?
My dream track. And right out of school, the pieces seemed to fall into place. So I feel very blessed and thank my lucky star every single day.
Yeah, you did have to go through quite a few auditions, I recall.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I know I had like 7 auditions over like 9 weeks, which were crazy. It was an amazing journey, and now I'm here.
And you got that call. What was that call?
It was really crazy. I was standing on the street, and I got it, and they were like, hey, so you're going to be performing opposite Lin-Manuel Miranda. I was like, wait, what? And I freaked out. I called my loved ones, and it's one of those moments that will be ingrained in my memory forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I can't wait for one of those calls. It won't be on stage though, darlings. It won't be on stage.
You never know.
Yeah, there's many of those calls throughout your life.
There are. And Rick, tell us about your journey because
oh my.
Do you
have all day?
Because you are what's the right word I'm looking for? You've done quite a few productions, right? I mean, this is unlike Simon. This is his first.
I'm on the other side of the
Broadway vet.
Yeah, you're the vet.
I am a Broadway vet. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know the terminology because
Oh, it's okay. You can call me a legend. No, I'm a Broadway legend.
Call me a Michael Jackson dancer.
Yeah, I was a dancer in my youth.
No way.
So yeah, I started at 10. I was 10 years old in Puerto Rico. I'm from Puerto Rico. My last name is Negron.
Negron.
Yeah. My mom is Irish from Ohio, and my dad's Puerto Rican, and they met in Mexico, and that's a long story. But I ended up in Puerto Rico, and my mom was a school teacher, and she was the drama teacher, and she's the one that got me hooked on this thing. And I started at 10. I did my first professional show, and then
what was it?
It was a show called The Me Nobody Knows, which was a musical back in the 70s about inner city kids. Okay. And they did it in Puerto Rico.
You
did a concert version
right before I booked the show
in New York. Yeah,
that's really crazy.
And I've seen videos of it.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah. And what's funny is that production in Puerto Rico spawned me. It spawned Josie de Guzman, who went on to do a bunch of shows on Broadway, and a pretty prominent playwright named Edwin Sanchez was in that production with me, who's done a lot of stuff around the country. And anyway, long story short, I also got involved in the dance world, in the musical theater and the dance world. And then when I went to college, I went to Sarah Lawrence outside New York City, and I was a modern dancer. And then while I was there, I became an Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater Scholarship student in 1980-81, a long time ago. And actually briefly worked with the Paul Taylor Dance Company before I realized that this dance team was really hard as a concert dancer. And
wait, let's talk about concert dancing. When you mean concert dancing, like you're on stage with like
concert dancers are people that are in dance companies, whether it's ballet, jazz, modern, contemporary, tap, they're in dance companies, and that's what we call concert dancers.
Okay.
And then you have Broadway dancers, which is really what was my first love, and then somehow I got steered into concert dancing, but I went back to the Broadway thing, and I did I was in the chorus of a Broadway show in '85. That was my first show.
Wow.
And
wasn't even thought of.
I know you weren't even a glimmer in your mom's eye. But I danced in a lot of Broadway shows through the '80s and the early '90s, and then I moved to LA, met my wife, and realized that my dancing days were behind me, and I could always sing and act, and so I focused on that, and then just transitioned into doing roles and being an actor and a voiceover artist, and I'm a jack of all trades.
Well, you're a great King George of all trades as well.
But what happened in 2005 was I got a phone call from an old dance friend of mine, Sergio Trujillo, who's a well-known choreographer who's done a ton of shows on Broadway. And he called me up and he was working on an early workshop of a show called In the Heights. And so he called me up and said, hey, listen, they're doing a workshop at the O'Neill, and you'd be great for the dad. And long story short, I got there. I met Lin-Manuel and the whole team that created Hamilton. Their first show was In the Heights. I met them all back then. And then a lot of history there. And then I ended up replacing the original guy on Broadway and I did In the Heights for 2 years on Broadway with Lin and a lot of the same players that were involved with Hamilton. And then I went back to LA after In the Heights closed, and I kept in touch with those guys. And then when Hamilton rolled around, I said, I got to be in this.
Yeah.
So I started auditioning about 2 years before I got the job.
Really?
And so, they are very, very particular and very, I should say, supportive. They want to make sure they get the right people, and they want to give you your best shot. So you have. I use that.
That's a song
lyric from the show.
Yeah.
But that they literally they have you come in for work sessions, and you work with Alex Lacamoire, the musical director, and he gives you notes. And by the time you're done with the audition process, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
And
they want you. Like, one thing I learned while I was auditioning, and that I keep in mind when I'm going to auditions, is they want you to succeed.
Oh yeah.
Like, they don't want to sit in that small room auditioning people for another 9 weeks. They want you to get the part, and they want to do what it takes. And especially with Hamilton, is I felt every time I entered the room is they wanted me to do my best on the material, and they were going to try and help me to do that.
Yeah, and they didn't just give you the one shot. They literally say, okay, you can do better. You can work on this. You can work on that. We're going to bring you back, but these are some notes. And so they actually help you get to where you need to be to then book the job.
That's
which is amazing.
Yeah, I love the fact that they're taking care of you.
Yeah. But it's also they're being very demanding. They have high standards, and that's because they feel responsibility to the show. The show is very important. They can't just bring anybody in. Right. They have to bring somebody in who can elevate the show.
Yeah.
And when you walk into I know when I walked into the first day of rehearsal for this company, I looked around and I heard the voices and I saw the amount of talent, and I was like, yeah, I get it. They go through this rigorous audition process to get the best of the best.
And I have to say, because I am a theater fan, and I've seen many productions of many different shows since Hamilton, and it's hard for me not to compare, to the level of expertise and performance that you all create for us. The cinematography, you really do feel like you are a part of the heartbeat of what takes place.
That's the genius of Andy and Tommy, how they and the lighting. I mean, this show just
everything molds together so well.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
There's no weak spot in the show. Like, oh, the lighting could be better. No, everything is superb.
And Brion, talk about your role, because you're the youngest.
Yes.
And you also are the one that is moving constantly. You just to put it in perspective.
Which is why I'm the youngest.
Yeah, I mean, I get tired just to put it in perspective. It's basically a 3-hour show,
Yes.
right?
It's a marathon.
It's a marathon, and you're doing this twice a week, many times, many days.
The show?
Yes.
Oh, yes, some days, Wednesdays and Saturdays. Yeah.
That's a lot. So let's talk about your performance and your involvement and also your commitment to this.
Well, I am originally from Greensboro, North Carolina, and I started with musical theater before I attended Alvin Ailey. I got into musical theater. My brother was doing community theater where I was from. I was into sports.
Really?
Yeah. Right. Really? Exactly. Yeah, so we switched roles.
Huh.
And now I used to go see him in a production of The Wizard of Oz every year. And one year I said, I want to do this. So my mom said, okay, let's do it. I fell in love. And from then on, it was...
And how old were you when you saw Wizard of Oz?
7, 8.
Okay, so very formative years.
Mm-hmm. So from then on, it was theater. No more sports.
How about that?
Isn't that crazy?
And you see you on, I watch you on stage, and it's grueling up there.
Yes, the show, like you said, is about 3 hours long, and we're always moving, telling the story, because as ensemble members, we carry the story along. You have these wonderful, principal actors who do what they do, but we are in the background, telling a story as well.
I never thought of that.
Around. Yeah.
They're like the Greek chorus in many
They
ways.
are.
Yeah. They comment on it. They're
Yeah.
always watching. They're always there.
And the set is very minimal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
Yes.
ensemble fully creates every single space.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty spectacular what the actual ensemble does to create the atmosphere
Yeah.
of every single moment.
Mm.
And
How many are in the company altogether?
30.
I'm Teresa Rodriguez, Editor-in-Chief of Where San Francisco, and you're listening to Where Travel Podcast, where we love to talk about anything related to travel. For more information about this episode, as well as Where Traveler, be sure to check out WhereTraveler.com.
and
How many are in the company altogether?
30.
including
Yeah, if you include all
everybody.
the understudies and standbys, yeah.
But on stage at one time, what's the most that you have on?
So we got-
I think it's about 20. Yeah,
That's a
right?
Yeah, about 20.
Yeah, 10
Wait,
10 ensemble and 10 leads.
are there 10 leads? Yeah, I think so.
Thereabouts.
Yeah, that sounds right.
We might be one
Sure.
or two off, but it's close to
Yeah,
that.
it's hard every night, and I'm the type of performer, I won't go on stage if I feel like I can't give 100.
Yeah.
So every night I try to, because there's different people seeing the show every night, so I
Right.
feel like they should get the same experience as the person before them
Right.
or after them.
It seems to me like there's a vitality that you have to be able to perform this day in and day out. Where do you think that vitality comes from? Brion?
Passion.
Yeah.
It's pure, unadulterated passion.
That's
We
where mine comes
love
from.
what we do. We wake up every morning lucky to be doing what we do,
Yeah.
and we know that we are not only love what we do, but there's a responsibility to the people that see the show that we're changing hearts and minds.
Yeah.
You are.
In many ways, we're teaching the youngsters about civics and about history and about legacy and what you do in this world matters
Yeah.
and how it affects the people around you.
It's a beautiful story to tell as
Yeah.
storytellers. Because
Yeah.
with that responsibility, we get to actually make people think about things that they may have never thought about before. And like what Brion was saying, every audience is different. And every single night, that same group of people will never be in the same room again,
Yeah.
which is a beautiful thing. And you get to share 3 hours sitting and attentively watching a story. And like in today's day and age, how often do we get to do
About to
that?
say that,
Yeah.
like
Wow.
to come on one accord and like sit in a theater, to sit in a space together and share art and create art, and for someone to be moved. That's why I do it.
Yes.
It's the opposite of social media.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah,
it's-
where
it-
you're alone and you think you're connecting, but you're really not.
Yeah, and I like what you said, Brion, about that connectivity, because it is profound, and you are, changing lives. I mean, I have to say, you know, I'm a single mom of an 8-year-old, and we saw the performance, and she was like, Hamilton's on a $10 bill. Who else is on the $10 bill? Who's on the back of the $10 bill? Why are they on bills? And then, like you said, the conversation opens up.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing some podcasts in New York, and she wanted to see where Hamilton was buried. So we went there because it was in the musical. We would have never thought of that. So that's thank you guys for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would love to know from each of you, like, let's start with Simon. What would you say is the biggest takeaway that from performing this that you've gotten about Hamilton?
Oh my goodness.
You only got one. No.
The biggest takeaway that I have received from Hamilton, the musical in general.
Yeah, just the whole experience of like, wow, this guy did this, whoa, like, and the fact that you're playing two very important roles. You know, you're playing Marquis de Lafayette and you're playing Thomas Jefferson, two pivotal men in the history of the United States of America, and you're them.
Yeah. One thing that I find is sometimes I have moments on stage where I get to feel like a vessel for these people. For me, it happens a good bit with Lafayette because before the show, I had no idea who the Marquis de Lafayette was. And the fact that I get to tell my version of his story on the stage every night, and I get to like at the end of Yorktown, get to stand there and be like, this man, Marquis de Lafayette, did something important for our country. And like when we're standing there and that applause is happening, I really enjoy breathing in that moment and being like, this human being who existed deserves this applause.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's one thing that I really enjoy about doing the show. And one big thing I've taken away is that history always has its eyes on you. Even if you may be forgotten for a certain amount of time, if you work your butt off and if you actually try to achieve what you feel like your life goal is, even if in your lifetime you don't see it come to full fruition, someday someone will. And
because the seeds you planted will thrive at some point.
Yeah.
That's
and
profound.
It's like Lynn watered these seeds that have been in our country's soil forever,
right?
Like since the birth of our country, and he watered it to a degree where people now know who Hamilton is.
Yeah,
and that's just a beautiful thing. And even though history for a long time forgot about him, like today and from now on, he will be remembered for more reasons than he was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to say the same thing. That's what I take away from the show is the fact that I know that I have the ability to make a difference, you know, because Hamilton did. He came from poverty, you know. He wasn't, you know, already, you know, somebody. He became somebody.
Yeah.
And so that's what I take away from it, that I can be great and I can make a difference in this world that we live in now, you know. So that's what I take away from it.
Yeah.
We were going down the rabbit hole, and I will gladly slide down.
Let's go.
Let's go. You know, I'm rereading Ron Chernow's book right now, and I came across something, you know, interesting about Hamilton. You know, we all know that. Well, we know that he grew up in poverty and squalor, and through his own intellect and tenacity, he got to where he got to. But there's a really amazing thing that the show has, that his story has, that I think is important in this day and age, because his ambition wasn't just an ambition to become famous or rich.
Right.
His ambition was to have, you know, yes, to have status and class, because he had no status and class when he was a child. And he wanted to be appreciated for his intellect. But more than anything, he wanted to build a country and to make people's lives better. He had really incredible goals. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. Even people that are in public office right now, their goals are not about they're not what they should be.
Right.
They're not about taking care of the people. They're about furthering their own cause and their own, I'll just leave it at that. Furthering their own cause or their friends' causes.
Right.
But they're not about taking care of their constituents, all of their constituents.
Right.
So that's the one thing that I think this show, it's showing not just this idealistic hero that we've all had, that we all knew about. It's showing three-dimensional people that had flaws.
Yeah.
That had, but it's amazing because Washington and his genius was to get the smartest of the smartest all together in one room. Jefferson was a brilliant man. So was Hamilton. So was Madison.
And all
so was
very
John
flawed.
Adams. All very flawed.
As
But
we
the
all
smart.
are.
Yeah.
But they got and Washington was no slouch either. A very smart man. But his genius was getting the smartest guys all together in one place and having them, create a constitution.
A common goal.
A common goal. And the whole purpose was for the good of the people.
Yeah.
Not to enrich themselves, not to, take care of all their buddies.
Right.
It really
Which is,
was.
one of the reasons, one of the many reasons they left the United Kingdom or England. And so on that note, can we hear a little? Can we hear a little King George?
King George gets the raw end of the deal sometimes. He was actually a good king. One little tidbit that I like to say about King George is that he did go mad, but he went seriously mad. Throughout the Revolution, he was actually pretty hands-on king, very smart, very well-educated, science, mathematics. He knew every rifle, gun that was being sent to the colonies. He was keeping track of everything. This guy was on the job. 15 kids, loyal to his wife. Wow. And the kings were never loyal to their wives back in the day, but he was loyal. And he was frugal. He barely entertained at the castle. They ate leftovers. I mean, this was unlike any other king before him. He was really into the governing and really involved, where a lot of kings weren't. They let Parliament take care of everything. But I think, he did have his flaws, and one of his fatal flaws was that he didn't negotiate. He became a tough guy when the colonies decided to do what they did. And then what he didn't also see was that France was going to help America. Right. And when he did not, and Marquis de Lafayette and Jefferson, who was in France, facilitating all that.
Oh yeah, writing the French Declaration.
They were all in on it. But England did not foresee that, and that was their fatal flaw. They would have never won the war without France's help.
Wow.
But after he lost the colonies, he started having bouts of madness. But it went back and forth. It wasn't until later in life when he went totally crazy. But the British public fell in love with him, and they took pity on him when he went mad. And that love affair between the British public and the royals started with King George III and has continued to this day.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And but for the purposes of our show,
right,
he is the ultimate, petulant child who is seen, and his lover, the colonies, saying, "I'm gonna give up on you. I'm gonna break up with you." And he says, "Please. No, you're not."
Please just give us a few lines.
Will you say?
So good.
The price of my love's not a price that you're willing to pay. You cry in your tea, which you hurl in the sea when you see me go by. Why so sad?
So petty.
Remember we made an arrangement when you went away. Now you're making me mad. And so, it goes from there. But that is the ultimate breakup song.
It is so great. And my favorite is the last line, which I'm no spoiler alert.
Most people know the music already, so.
They do.
And that's one thing I'll recommend to our listeners is that if you're not familiar with either the story or the music, go ahead and listen to it.
Yeah.
The show
It moves quick.
and the words are coming at you fast and furious. And especially if you're not a youngin', if you're more my age, middle aged, and a little bit past that, I recommend listening to the music. Or if you want to be surprised by the music, at least acquaint yourself with the story of Hamilton.
Yeah, I agree.
Because all that information is coming at you very quickly. And I remember the first time I saw the show, I had no idea what I was, and I missed probably a third of it because the words are coming at you so fast.
I think that is the best piece of advice for people who want to see the show, who have not seen the show yet, because I was like you. It was 3 hours of, oh my God, this is amazing. What just happened? Yeah. Why am I crying?
Which is why people come back and see it over and over again, because there's so much there.
Yeah.
It's a 3-ring circus.
Show the next time you see it.
Totally.
Yeah. I met a guy in Puerto Rico, and when this company was put together for the Puerto Rico run with Lin-Manuel, and they had choice seats. It was a big fundraiser, and people were paying $5,000 a seat and that was to make up the money for Lin's foundation, the Flamboyant Foundation for Arts Education. And this guy had come to see Hamilton, and they had like a little party afterwards that we would hang out with those big donors. And he said, I've seen Hamilton 26 times. And I'm sure he's probably, by the time he's done, he's probably going to see Hamilton a lot more.
Yeah.
He just loves it.
I could. I mean, it's every day we wake up to the Hamilton soundtrack.
It's a
not sick of it yet.
Yeah, no, not at all. Okay. We want to hear a little bit of Lafayette.
Oui, mon ami.
How did you learn that? How did a kid from Oregon figure out that accent? Because you do it so well on stage.
Oh, thank you so much. This is a random story. So my junior year of college, I knew I wanted to be in Hamilton. I knew I wanted to play Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson. And I was like, how can I do a study abroad that like adds to my education? And I was like, why not do a study abroad in Paris? Why not just like, so I studied art history in Paris and a little bit of French. I still don't speak any French. But
you can order in a restaurant.
L'addition, s'il vous plaît, which is, can I have the check, please? That's about it. But I just had a great time in Paris just learning about art and about how every art piece reflects and refracts what's happening in society the time it was created. And I just got to learn about myself and about French culture. And that's where I really started to fall in love with the Marquis de Lafayette and just started to get to know him a little bit better.
Well, share him with us today.
Oui, mon ami, je m'appelle Lafayette. Je Lancelot of the Revolutionary Set. I came from a fudge to say bonsoir to the King Casse-Trois. Who's the best? C'est moi. Bravo! It's a lot of fun. And as Rick was saying, when he went into some of the history about his character, one beautiful thing that we get to do as actors is get to invest, especially with a show like this, get to invest in these historical characters or historical settings and get to understand how these people ticked in certain ways and how we interpret how they ticked. We get to see a good actor always finds the good in their character and always is able to justify their actions, just as we as human beings do not see ourselves as the villain in the story.
Yeah, a villain does what he does and he thinks it's right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's not doing something because he thinks it's wrong.
Right.
And
he's a villain because his thinking is flawed.
Right.
And it's like you as that character can never see your thinking as flawed. Like Thomas Jefferson, for example, who is an amazing founding father, but is a historically not, was not the best human being. He was very much pro-slavery, very hard on his property, as he would say. It's interesting trying to embody a character that would have enslaved me.
Wow. Whoa.
And it's a very interesting thing.
Let's just like that. Wow.
That's yeah.
And especially as a mixed human being, when historians are finding out and discovering that Thomas Jefferson most likely had many illegitimate children with possibly Sally Hemings. It's interesting approaching these characters and trying to justify some of their actions and trying to tell a compelling story. Because Hamilton, for example, is a very flawed character. And I think that the show does a good job, I would have to say, of showing multiple dimensions of him as a human being when it comes to, he's not, I don't think Hamilton's a hero of the story.
No.
I think that there is no real hero of the show Hamilton, because there is no real hero in life. Everyone is fighting for their goals, and if someone opposes those goals, that doesn't therefore make them a villain for all of time.
Right.
So yeah, investing in the character's history and like what makes them good, what makes them compelling, I really love to do, because it helps me figure out who I am and who I desire to be in my own life.
Yeah. What was something that you uncovered about Lafayette that you were like, whoa, whoa, whoa?
A lot. That he was so young. He was
18 or 19?
About when he came over, he got very seasick on the way over, which took, I think it took an incredibly long time to get from Paris to the pre-states, the colonies. And he was actually turned away at first. They were like, we don't need any more French troops. We're good. And he was like, I just came here to fight for this country that's not my own.
Wow.
And they turned him away at first, and he waited, and then he was able to get in contact with George Washington. And then him and George Washington created this beautiful relationship that was very much like father and son. Lafayette's father died when he was very, very young at the hands of British troops.
Wow.
And George Washington and Lafayette created this beautiful relationship where Lafayette later named his kid George Washington.
Right. And wasn't his son George Washington also brought soil back from the United States
to bury
his father? And
it's a very amazing story that I had no idea existed, and I feel very honored that I get to get people interested in that human being, because the Marquis de Lafayette was a human being. All these people were human beings and shouldn't be, I personally don't think they should be put on the pedestals that we have throughout history. And it's cool to get to take it down. Mm-hmm. Like, we as actors get to take it off that pedestal and be like, okay, if this was a human being, which it was, like, what made them tick?
Right.
And it's really cool. I love getting to be an actor.
What's fascinating about that too is that we put them on pedestals, but people in those days, there was no TV.
Yeah.
Right.
They were well read. They were super educated. Most those who had the wherewithal education were super educated, and therefore they had lofty goals.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to think, what's the hero of this story? I think what they did to this country is what they did for this country was the heroic. America ends up being the hero of the story, because America turned out to be this beacon of liberty and freedom, and and it took a while. It had its bumps and hiccups along the way.
Yes,
still has bumps and hiccups, exactly.
But I what you said is so true, because when I first saw Hamilton, I was like, there's chaos in this country. But when I watched it, I felt hope again for our great nation. Yeah. That we've had a lot of great men here, and I'm just so thankful that you gentlemen have taken your time to be with us today. And for our listeners who've taken their time to step into your world. This is Teresa Rodriguez with WhereTraveler podcast. And if you haven't seen Hamilton, you got to see it. It's playing in San Francisco until May 31st, 2020. Go online to Hamilton. You get tickets. The shows have been sold out, but because they're going to be staying a little bit longer, your chances of seeing the show are greater. And
we actually have a promotion now that you can get tickets for Hamilton starting at $95.
Wow.
Which is great.
There's Today Tix, which is a great app.
Right.
There's the Hamilton Lottery, which we have here in San Francisco.
Oh, at all the companies of Hamilton have Hamilton Lottery. You can do that online, and that's a $10 ticket.
Wow.
A Hamilton for a Hamilton, ham for a ham.
I love it. That's so great, a ham for a ham. So thank you, gentlemen, and we'll see you on stage.
Yes.
You got it.
Thank you, listeners, for joining me. You've been listening to the WhereTraveler podcast, hosted by me, Teresa Rodriguez.
This episode was produced and directed by Pete A. Turner, John Leon Guerrero, and Victoria Shepard. To listen to this podcast, find out more information about the crew, as well as WhereTraveler, visit WhereTraveler.com, your ultimate destination guide.